It is shocking to report that 1 in 6 men will experience domestic abuse at some point in their lives.
Yet despite the fact that 1/3 of victims are men, Inside Out has discovered that facilities and support for them are woefully lacking. Simon O'Brien has this special report.
Saturday afternoon at Chorley FC, but Deborah Livesley hasn't come to watch a football match.
Yeah, used to come here all the time. Never missed a game.
She's here visiting the memorial of her former partner, who was murdered by his new wife in 2015. David had been a lifelong Chorley supporter. His family donated a bench to the club after his death to raise awareness of male domestic violence and to give his friends and family a place to come and remember him.
He was an absolutely brilliant dad. He was well respected, well thought of. Just a really, really nice man.
Deborah and David were together for 8 years and have one daughter, Mahalia, together, David's only child. However, the couple eventually grew apart and split in 2013, but they remained close friends. David went on to meet his new partner, Sharon Edwards. Within the first weeks of that relationship, Deborah noticed the first signs of abuse.
It was 6 months after we split up, he met Sharon. Within 2 weeks I noticed he'd broken his collarbone. David said he'd fallen downstairs, but I was like, no. Things, they weren't adding up, because he was telling people different things. He'd fallen off a set of ladders. He told me he'd fell downstairs.
David never told anyone about the horrific abuse he was suffering at the hands of his new wife, Sharon Edwards. Sadly, this is not unusual, as it's estimated only 10% of men report their abuse.
2.5 weeks before he died, he'd rang me up crying because he was missing Mahalia. I begged him to leave her. I said, you need to get out and go anywhere. I offered to hide him in my house. I know I shouldn't have done, but he just said, I can't. She won't let me leave. And I even said to him, I said, you're going to end up dead. I said, she will kill you.
Why do you think that is, that he chose to hide all this?
Embarrassment. Just the stigma what goes with it, that, a man thing, I don't know.
How serious did the injuries get?
As time went on, they got worse and worse, from like black eyes to scratches to cuts all over his face. Broken ribs.
Even on his wedding day, David had to wear makeup to cover up a black eye. He was murdered just 2 months later from a single stab wound to the chest.
The police turned up at my doorstep, came in, and the words were, there's no easy way to tell you this, but David was killed last night. And my first reaction was, she'd done it. I knew straight away she'd done it.
Sharon Edwards was later sentenced to life at Manchester Crown Court. David's brother Peter spoke outside court after Sharon was sentenced.
This case has highlighted the tragic impact that domestic violence can have and shows how difficult it can be for victims of that violence to speak up and escape their situation. This is particularly the case for male victims who are afraid that by telling of what is happening to them, it will be seen as a sign of weakness.
Reports of domestic abuse towards men in some parts of the northwest increased over threefold in the last year, making the total number of incidents reported to police in the region over 18,500, and it's thought the actual figure could be much, much higher.
It is likely to be the tip of the iceberg in some respects, really. I think that it probably captures some male victims who have come forward and reported, but I think there are a lot of men that experience domestic violence and don't ever report it and often don't tell anybody. I think there's lots of reasons that men often don't ask for help in terms of the services as well that are available. They often don't look like they provide support for men, even though often they do. And I think a lot of the time it's because with the campaigns and things that we have around domestic violence, they're often really sort of geared towards women and women victims.
In the last 5 years, reports of male domestic abuse have increased by 200% in Merseyside and Cheshire police areas. In Lancashire, there was a 70% increase, while in Greater Manchester, reports shot up by 352%. In Cumbria, the figures remain high, despite only increasing by 7%. Although it's thought only 5% of domestic abuse victims who access support services are male, Research carried out by the University of Cumbria shows they're just as likely as women to suffer physical and emotional abuse.
It really highlighted that they were really quite serious physical aggression that they were experiencing, but also a lot of psychological and emotional abuse through the form of controlling behaviour, so being isolated from friends and family and being told what to wear, what to do, what to eat. Lots of, like a really wide range of behaviours that they experienced.
When men do seek help, places in safe houses are few and far between. While there are over 3,500 refuge beds for women in England, there are just 20 specifically for men. Some of those beds are in this refuge, which is one of just 3 safe houses in the northwest to cater for men. I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't this.
Well, we've got room for 3 men to live in this safe house. They live communally and share the facility, share the living space.
Okay.
They have their own room which locks, it gives them that privacy, but the communal part of it is very much a shared kitchen, living room, bathroom.
And how long has this facility been open?
So we've been open about 18 months and during that time we've received referrals for 32 men into the service.
Okay. And how many of them did you actually take?
So
Could you take?
During that time we've been able to accommodate 12 of those referrals.
So that shows that the need is there, and also it seems to me that there's a shortage as well.
Yeah, definite shortage of dedicated space for male victims escaping domestic abuse, definitely.
And the other thought that strikes me, I guess, is that because it is dedicated for men who've suffered domestic violence, I guess even their shared experience that in this communal kind of area would help.
Yeah, it's very difficult to come forward and admit that you're experiencing domestic abuse, but to have that validated by other survivors, that's really helpful. That's a helpful support for them, and they pull on each other. And we do have men that have continued to support each other throughout the stay, and you know, look after each other when they're having bad days.
It's not just for men who have been abused by women. The safe house is there for victims of so-called honour beatings and men, like Tony, who for 15 years was systematically abused in a same-sex relationship. He was beaten, isolated from his friends, prevented from working or even owning a mobile phone. He agreed to speak to us as long as we protect his identity.
I found an old mobile phone and I made phone calls to the domestic abuse helpline. I pretended I was going for a walk or was going shopping. They said, "You have to leave. It's very, very important you get out of this relationship." I must have left at 3 in the morning. I waited around for a taxi for a couple of hours in the churchyard, freezing cold. It was almost Christmas. It took me to the nearest train station. I hopped on a train and came here.
It took 4 months in the safe house for Tony to feel strong enough to find a place of his own.
I still feel ashamed even today to admit I was in an abusive relationship. I think it's something to do with being a man. You're supposed to stand up for yourself. You're supposed to protect yourself. You hear a lot about women's groups, and of course, women and children are always going to get a priority, but men also need help.
What would be your advice to anyone in that situation, any man in that situation?
Tell somebody, get the help, go to the police, tell your friends, and get out. Leave.
As I've been talking about this subject, there's one thing that sticks with me. Forget the male ego, forget everything. What you must do if you're a victim of abuse towards men is tell someone, anyone, your mate, your family, the police, tell someone.